Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, and thanks for stopping by. Our dedicated team will guide you through with the latest updates and theories at Starbase, Texas. If you're new to the channel, be sure to hit the subscribe button and the bell icon for future streams.
Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, Starbase friends around the world. Astro Joe here for RGV Aerial Photography, Starbase Weekly, episode 116. RGV's been battling aircraft maintenance and clouds, so we got about 4,000 foot outside of the TFR flight. Still a little hazy, still a little cloudy, but we got what we got for you this week. I'll pass it on over to your host, Stephanie.
G'day from Australia. How's everybody today? Like Astro said, we've had a bit of a difficult time with the weather recently, but we've got some good photos today, and we can see a bit of the launch site and quite really good photos of Masis. And with us today, we've got Darth Lawrence. How you going?
Hi, Stephanie, and thank you, YouTube and RGV, for letting me be here. And we also have Todd with us today.
Hello, everyone. Welcome. I think we got a good show. Like we said, they're low flight. But I think we get another advantage of the low flights that we don't normally get, especially at my favorite spot, Masis. We can get in and see stuff that we cannot see from 10,000 feet. So I'm definitely looking forward to this. Thanks for having me, everybody.
Okay, and with that, let's just jump over to Masis. And as normal, we'll start over at the Flame Trench. A couple of nice angles with these lower altitudes. Sometimes we get to see things we don't get to normally see, which is good. That's true. So we've seen deliveries of methane over the last few weeks, and over the last week or so we've seen deliveries of liquid nitrogen. Over here we've got a nitrogen drop-off point here, and this is for water. It's where they're putting water into the system. It was previously thought these pumps were for the liquid nitrogen to go into the vaporizers here, but we've worked out that the liquid nitrogen's coming straight through this pipe, straight into the vaporizers here, which are water type heat exchange vaporizers. And this tank is getting the liquid nitrogen's being pumped with ullage pressure rather than with pumps. These pumps appear now to be associated with filling them up with water. You remember at the launch site, there's always been a pump sitting nearby when they pump water into the deluge farm. Well, at Masis here, they've learned from that, and they've installed electric motors here to fill up the water tanks. I still haven't put this 5th vaporizer in. I'm not sure what's going on with that, but that won't be much of an issue. We'll probably see, I haven't seen the T-pieces. There's going to obviously have to be some kind of T-piece or elbow at least put in for this vaporizer, which we haven't seen yet. There's something that's been puzzling me. Sorry, I'm just going to go up in a little bit here. This smaller pipe going through here is the only restriction and force water through these other vaporizers. That may just simulate the water resistance from this vaporizer to force water, not too much water through. So once they put this vaporizer in, we may not see this bypass anymore. Just a little side thought there. Continuing on the water deluge farm here a little bit, we've got the depress vents here. We see them at the launch site as well with little T's off the ends. So that's once the testing is finished, the gas will escape. They'll be able to shut these valves off and open these valves, and the high pressure nitrogen will depress down through here and back out there. I'm thinking these are probably some kind of safety valve at that end. Since the last flyover, this pipe, mystery pipe, it could be water recovery from the trench. It could be a pump in the trench coming through here through filters and then somehow back into the system once they're finished test firing or before test firing. Maybe there's somehow they can reclaim the water from the trench going back in there. So once again, because of the low altitude, we can see a lot of detail. We haven't been able to see like how these pipe under here, for instance. A nice new shiny coat of paint on this end. It seems like there's still some work to go with this hatch, this cover here still being removed. I'm not sure what's going on there. And last week's flyer, we saw the cap on the end there had also been removed. I haven't been able to see whether it's still removed or not.
Yeah,
That would
yeah,
make a lot of
definitely. It definitely looks like a work still in progress.
This week we saw
Redone all this and how we can see how the nitrogen on the methane side is plumbed in. Again, these lower altitude levels, I love looking at these ones because of these pictures right here.
on that. Last week I assumed that these two baskets were for liquid oxygen and liquid nitrogen, but it seems like these two now we can see are plumbed in for the liquid oxygen only, and it looks like it's somehow they can vary how that works. And the liquid nitrogen now travels over to the methane side, as does the methane, and it appears they can put either the methane or the nitrogen through these basket type strainers, and then there's only one output from that. There's this other line through here which is something different. So that now there's no real reason to fill this methane tank with nitrogen, so it's more than likely just to chill the system down, because they can chill the oxygen system down with liquid oxygen, but obviously they can't chill the system down with liquid methane. So they're using liquid nitrogen through here to cool the whole methane side down, including the tank to some degree, I would imagine. Coming back over this side, as Todd just said, it looks pretty well finalised. Everything's finalised for this whole area. It looks getting very close to being able to finally doing a static fire, which would be fantastic to see. And just the odd little tiny bits here and there to be finished off. This tank here, we finally found it has, looks like a water tank. It doesn't look like a cryo tank at all. The valves and so on doesn't look like at all like a cryo tank. It looks more like a water tank. And that pipe comes around and ends up going back towards the flame trench and even continuing on and up the QD arms. So I'm not sure why there's water up that end. Perhaps some kind of DSS system like at the launch site, where obviously you can't have that mounted on the stand here because the stand moves away. So there may be some kind of system like that actually on this stand here.
That's what I'm leaning towards, Steph. I think it's a detonation depression system. They need something up top to keep the methane flushed out when they're priming and starting the engines up. We know what happens when they don't have something like that, and we don't need it again.
Yeah, I would agree.
Yeah, we don't want one of those, what was it called, a unscheduled high pressure event.
Yeah, an energetic.
Go on.
Yeah, an energetic event, as it was called.
That's the word, thank you. Continuing on with some of the plumbing, I think under here is where they're filling the tanks. It's only other plumbing I can see that would have something to do with the filling. And perhaps this high pressure tank and this pipe up over here may have something to do with getting the system running. I think I've mentioned before that this tank here, the first tank here, supplies water for the heat exchange here. So somehow for the heat exchange to work, water has to be flowing. So somehow there needs to be a way to get the system started. And once it's started and producing high pressure nitrogen, it'll self-perpetuate. But it just needs somehow to get the water actually flowing to start with. So we think that's what this system's for. Okay, I think that's pretty well that whole area. That's, like I said, there's a few changes, but expected changes, and a lot of tidying up. Oh, and to
We can
mention
see
over here that
Yeah, I was going to say that new pad that's going in, Steph.
can carry on.
Looks like they're going to be putting a new pad on this side over here. This is going to allow them to get access underneath the ship with the Raptor truck. Anything they need to do to make changes, get lifts underneath there because they can't go in the same way the TMPs went in. They got the big beam in the way right there. So this will give them a clear access with lots of room to get underneath it and be able to work on things.
Yeah, those close-up photos are really good definition. This is a photo that shows this water pipe better coming through here, up and along here, and then up into the gantry somehow for something, probably DSS. So a little bit more concrete over here getting prepped, and I keep saying each week the dirt areas are getting smaller and smaller.
Yeah, it's really nice to see all this concrete being put down so it's not just a dirt field with all this testing going on.
And with that concrete going down, we are now taking bets on how long it lasts. Mine is 1 week for majority of it. Just kidding.
That's a good estimation. Okay, on to the liquid oxygen farm. We have some preparations here for some more of these pedestals, and we have the crane set up here with the truss sections here for a constant CFA, constant flight auger, for the piles to create some more of these tank stands.
Yeah, they're currently setting up that crane right now for CFA, it looks. So, yeah, in those dirt areas, we'll be seeing some new piles going in for some new tanks. Which tanks are going in, still hard to say. A lot of people are wondering about the suborbital Pad B tanks. Some are wondering if they're new. Right now, it's just up in the air. I personally don't think we'll see any of those over here. Maybe, but my guess is no. I think we're going to see similar tanks to what they have here. But that remains to be seen. Future flights will know sooner or later.
We notice this tank is the same as the tanks at the launch site with these marks here. And so they're the same brand. So we expect to see up to 4 of these tanks sitting here in the future. We know there's a spare spot here for one, and it appears that this one over here is exactly the right size for 2 more tanks. And given they're exactly the same pedestals, and nothing at the suborbital tank farm matches this size, I agree with Todd. I really doubt anything from the suborbital tank farm is coming here. And the other note to that is everything's complete here. They have all of the tanks they need here for the methane side and the deluge side. And for this tank farm side, they have everything they need here, minus a few more LOX tanks. A question is asked about the extra LOX tank is why would you need extra LOX tanks? And a good answer to that would be perhaps in the future with the greater cadence of flights, they're going to need a greater cadence of testing as well. So it gives them a much better buffer. And they may even be able to cryo test a couple of vehicles within a day, even static fire another vehicle, because as we see the cadence increasing around the place.
Yeah, I mean, we've already seen the Flight 6 ship and booster be cryo tested within the last couple of weeks. So B-13 and Ship 31 have both been here for cryo testing recently.
And Ship 31, it had that little accident. It had a little bit of a flame. We spoke about that through some of the chats through the week. It was an interesting, unscheduled event.
I believe Ship 31 is now known as Sparky. Definitely was interesting. It spooked me out for seeing some good pictures of it. Kind of helps tell what happened, but that was definitely unwanted.
Sparky, I like that. Being a retired electrician, we're always called Sparkies. I like that a lot, thanks. A question in my mind was whether this tank was actually plumbed in, and it does appear so, that this tank is plumbed in. We don't very often get a shot from around that angle. So we can see a pipe laying in here, which confused me. I thought it was this pipe, but obviously this pipe is the delivery of liquid oxygen from these tanks into and returning from the main delivery line over here. So yeah, there's a cross pipe here that ties into this system somewhere in amongst these manifolds here. It may have something to do with some of these valves here as well. Okay, and with that, we'll go on to the new test structure. So still only guessing that it's some kind of can crushy, twisty, force-inducing torture chamber. Thingamajigger, yeah. The torture chamber. So we saw last week some extra verticals which are a different size, and it's hard to tell sometimes with perspective, but like these curved pieces look smaller and more curved, but we're looking at them from the end. But what we can use them for is to judge the length of this vertical beam. It appears similar length, if you want to say length, compared to these vertical beams, which seem a lot shorter if you compare them to the curved part. So we're missing just one more ring to complete, one more curved section, to complete a third ring, which I'm sure we'll see arrive at some stage.
Yeah, this is just getting more complex and complex to me as time goes on. Just when you think that they've got all the layers there, they bring in some more uprights and some more curved sections, and it's okay, another layer, and makes me wonder what type of a crane they're going to have here permanently, because they got to have something now. If they're lifting something into this, it's going to be they got to have something here permanently. I don't think it's going to be a really big one like to lift ships, but I just wonder how this is going to go together and what order. Is it going to be placed inside, then another piece on top, and then another piece down in the middle? Is it going to be one solid object that they drop it straight down and put the cap on? It's just keeps changing every week.
I thought
Yeah,
it's maybe they'll go and Duff.
I was going to say there have been a lot of questions about what's going to happen with the SpaceX crane at the launch site, and once it's not needed there anymore, it might be the one to show up over here if they're not keeping that LR 1600/2 for that in the future.
Agreed. That the LR 11,000 at the launch site will soon be running out of things to do. Obviously, there's the odd bit of maintenance here and there, and it'll be used still to get rid of the vertical tanks and perhaps help a little bit with the new launch site. But obviously, it'll be limited with its capacity to do much on a tower, except maybe some of the lower sections. Back with this stand, all the walkways and platforms have been finalised. With still more platforms for the next layers, next levels. It's funny, in a lot of these photos we couldn't see past that they were different angles in this platform sections, but it really shows the power of how the camera can trick the eye a little bit when they actually are symmetrical. They just don't look symmetrical at all. And on this stand here, we can see they're very much symmetrical.
I really think how those walkways came together is really slick. It just looks good, and this is another one of those they've learned from their past endeavors that how to do things better and how to make things right the second time, third time, fourth time around. I just think it's really nice how they look, actually.
Yeah, everything's looking a lot more permanent and long-term use versus what we've seen in the past.
Yeah, they're using scaffolding to go around the structures, then bringing it back down, then doing a test, scaffolding go up. This is just definitely nicer.
And one thing I've noticed very different to the suborbital tank farm is how square everything is. At the suborbital tank farm, the tanks are up on angles to pipes, and it's just such a bit of a mishmash. But here, everything's nice and square and straight and well laid out and well planned. Continuing with this stand, the plumbing has been installed into the actual whatever this platform is for. It's to with the cryo equipment inside here, the cryo and high pressure equipment. So this stand will be capable of introducing liquid cryo nitrogen only and high pressure nitrogen. And whatever's coming off this side's interesting. I haven't seen that before. So most of the liquid nitrogen for this test stand is coming from the main liquid nitrogen line around the corner here, which continues on to the cryo stations and the flame trench. So maybe that's a drain back the other way. Not sure what's going on down this end. It doesn't look like it's insulated either, so that's an interesting little development. We have a high pressure nitrogen line coming in once again off the main high pressure nitrogen line that goes to the other test sites, and we have some kind of vent here as well coming through these mystery T things. I haven't quite got a full explanation what these are exactly yet. I'm kind of guessing maybe it's something to reduce the chance of any liquid nitrogen spilling onto the concrete, but we've seen liquid nitrogen on concrete before, so I'm a little bit puzzled what these are exactly still. Tell me what you think in the comments.
Yeah, I've definitely been wondering those too. I think the first time we noticed them was in the methane farm side. I believe maybe they were here first, but I know that's the first time I noticed it. It's like, what is that? And I've asked a couple friends in the industry what if they know what it is, and Yeah, it's weird. I don't know for sure. I'm still looking, and hopefully we find something exactly.
The first one we noticed was here. There's one also near the there's two near the cryo stations as well. So it's something they have been using.
From 10,000 feet, to me, it looked like an air conditioning unit with something on top. But now when you get to these lower angles, it's definitely not that. I mean, I knew it wasn't an air conditioning unit, but it looks similar to that. But from these angles, it looks like there's a lot of room in between the two layers. From there, you got the pipes there, then there's something in between. But I thought it was filled to the outside of that. Now you can definitely tell it's not. So still clueless, but trying to get as much information as we can.
Now, thank you. We have some more of the. Oh, excuse me. We have some more of the handrails for the next layers of that test structure over here as well. Okay, any more? We missed anything? That's about all we have on Macy's, I think. We'll go through with some donations and questions, please, Joe.
Sure. Want to thank Crane Man for popping off with a PayPal donation, hopping on the donation train. Choo choo, he says. Great show. Regards. Thanks, Crane Man. Appreciate your support. Jab Kuipers gifted a membership as the stream started, along with Jake Winlow gifting 5, Callistia Lee gifting 5 memberships, Methane Man gifting 10 memberships, and Just Martin gifting 5 memberships. Thank you all for that support. Goes directly back into getting RGV in the air. We appreciate that. Especially along with Sharpie, $10 super chat. Appreciate all your hard work. Much kudos. And Methane Man with the $4.99 super chat says choo choo. Thank you all for your donations. Much appreciated. Surely helps bring these shows to you every week. Ryan Illenberg coming in with a question. What purpose do the stringers serve on Ship 26 given that its structural loads are minimal? Since it's never going to fly? Question mark.
Now that it's here, my thought on those is they're just either testing something or they're just going overboard to make sure that there's no other problems with this ship. They can let it just sit here, load it up, fire it. They're trying to double up on the whole ship itself. Well, not the whole ship, but the section they did to make it just much better for test article, to be able to test the engines and not have to worry about different things. And just that's my thought. At first, I was completely clueless because I did not expect it to come here. Once it came here, it kind of like, well, yeah, maybe they're just trying to make it stronger for testing.
Yeah, I'd agree. It's definitely some sort of strengthening test article.
So many questions around Ship 26. You could speak for hours about what 26 is or isn't going to do. There's a little bit of lowdown that Ship 26 will not fly. Some inside info there through some media release, but it won't fly, but it will static fire here.
Right. Moving on, now Bandian asking, what still needs to be done for the first static fire test at Massey's, and how long do you guys think it will be needed for those steps?
I think farm testing, what they haven't done, deluge testing, there's probably stuff that we can't see, very small stuff, but I wouldn't be surprised to start seeing deluge testing and more farm testing this week, possibly, and hopefully static fire in the next couple weeks, depending on how all that goes. But I think we're getting pretty close.
Yeah, I definitely agree that within the next couple of weeks to the next month, we're going to see actual testing go on at the flame trench.
As far as what else needs to be done, well, there's that cap over there. As far as we can tell, all the methane safety side of things and the flame, I keep forgetting what's called, the flame thing over there, the thing
Flame stack?
the internal, the enclosed flame stack. Everything's in place. They have live methane on site. They have nitrogen now in the nitrogen storage tank. So all the plumbing, still a bit of scaffolding, which may or may not need to be removed, or it may or may not show a little bit more work to go on. But to answer your question, there's very minimal as far as we can tell, is very minimal still to happen before a static fire can occur. I do see some plumbing still about, so maybe there is a couple of little tiny little bits and pieces in amongst in amongst all this. There's still some scaffolding around the methane tanks, but other than that, it appears 90%, 99% finalised, I'd like to say. Thank you, Joe.
All right. Tom 8 asking, is the new test stand bolted down, or is it just held down by weight?
That's a good question.
I believe it's bolted down. From the past pictures, it looked like there were studs coming up. So I'm going team bolt. Let's see what we can see when we zoom in. Yeah, I think we're bolted down there.
Yeah, definitely it looked like it was going to be bolted down from our past flyover.
Cool.
It does look bolted down, yes.
Yeah, agreed. I want to thank Miss Jax, the lovely Miss Jax, for gifting a membership. Thank you for that support. Cameron Zuka asking, any chance they bring tanks from Pad B over here?
Chance? I mean, there's always a chance they'll do something that we're not expecting, but I don't think so. I really don't. A lot of those tanks, when they were wrapped up to roll, they look like they're going for a distance ride. They didn't look like they were short term. I mean, maybe it had something to do with the company they hired to move them from one side to the other, but they sure look like they're ready for a long trip. We'll see, though.
Go on.
I've been kind of thinking those tanks, might actually end up at McGregor after this.
So with the tanks here, I think I mentioned earlier that there's really no tanks required here from the suborbital tank farm because everything is here that's needed to be here. All the rear condensers and all the methane side and all the vaporizer side and the high pressure tanks, all the deluge tanks and associated support infrastructure, the whole tank farm here. It's getting more tanks, but it's obvious they're going to be this larger type, which is nothing from the suborbital tank farm fits this little jigsaw puzzle here. So I'll agree with you both and say no, nothing at all. Nothing, not one little thing from the suborbital tank farm is required here at Masis. And who'd want it here? It's all old and yucky anyway.
That's right. All right. The Brockie is asking, do we know if they have tested the water system in the trench yet? Can it be visible from the live cams?
My opinion is no, they haven't, but we might not be able to see it. I'm not sure until we can see it or don't see it and find out it's been tested. I don't know. That's a good question. You would think you'll see it shooting out there, but yeah, I until we see it go, I honestly don't know.
Yeah, I'm kind of under the opinion from the current cam locations, we'll see the steam that'll be rising out of the flame trench, but not much else right now.
I don't think the deluge farm is quite operational just yet. This lid is still missing. There was a lid missing on that far flange back there. I mean, it's like so close, it's not funny. I expect to see a test within the next week or so, I would say. Like Dale said, we probably won't see a water deluge test here, but it doesn't appear to have had, no. We'll definitely see a static fire, but probably not a deluge test.
So SpaceX, if you're listening, we would love to see some video on X and when you do test it. We would be honored to see it. So we know you're listening to us. Just give us videos.
Yes, please. Now, Bendian asking regarding the electrical fire on 31 during the cryo testing. Is it known what happened or how much damage there is to the ship? Can it still be used? Does it need to be scrapped?
That's a good question. Now, the best answer I've seen so far, and it comes from Ringwatchers conversation is, let's just pretend this is the raceway, because this ship doesn't have one like that does. And the cover, inside that cover, so I'll just go back a fraction. Next to the electrical raceway cover, the regen pipes run up vertically, and then beside there's the enclosed cover where the electrical goes. But also, in amongst that electrical, there's one high pressure line. It starts down here low in the skirt at the bottom junction box and runs all the way up to the payload bay, I believe. And it appears that that pipe has been torn out of the raceway, and it could have started a fire by some kind of failure in the pipe, created some kind of vibration or just enough physical force to sever a cable with more than likely one of the DC buses. There'd be a battery in the top or the bottom, I can't remember now, and a bus in between. And had the main bus shorted out, which may not have a fuse or may have a very high capacity fuse, appears to have severed the main bus. We don't believe the tank itself would be damaged necessarily, but definitely there's some damage to the raceway, heaps of damage to the electrical. There's wires hanging out everywhere, and that high pressure pipe. Now, they inspected 29's raceway in the general area, and we don't know whether it's a failure of a flange or a fitting or just a pipe let go. It has something to do with that, we believe, and that's the best explanation I've found searching around the chats so far.
I think that's an excellent analysis and about all the information that we've got. Spherical Cow asking, why is there an undeveloped corner on the Masis Island remaining? Does SpaceX not own it?
What do you think, Dar?
I believe that's actually owned by the Fish and Wildlife Service of Texas.
Yep. That was my understanding as well.
Agreed. And final question regarding Masis from Spherical Cow. Also, do you guys think the flame trench is lined with fondag, or is it just regular concrete?
I think it's regular concrete.
Yeah, I think it's regular concrete too. One thing I'm surprised... Sorry, that was a bit quick there. I was always imagining there may be some kind of extra cover on the slurry walls, but obviously the slurry walls are of a higher grade strength concrete to withstand the acoustic. We can imagine the amount of acoustic energy down in this part of the trench down under here. We know this beam over the top here is quite significant in response to that acoustic energy. So we don't know, underneath here, we remember there's a bit of an overhang. This top concrete beam up here is quite a lot wider than the width of the wall. So there is an overhang down under this section of this beam. And we're not sure whether the wall was lined. So the flame bucket's down under there as well. It's actually way down there, isn't it? Down under here. Not sure whether the wall was lined between the flame bucket and the wall. There's probably about the width of the wall space between the edge of that beam and the end of the edge of the actual wall. Other than that little area, which is unsure of, the rest of it you can see here, it appears very much just the raw slurry wall.
Yeah, from what we saw, and not definite at all, it doesn't appear to be much other than what the actual buckets and the plates for the buckets to sit on. But during the time when they were doing this, we had a lot of bad weather, and it's also hard angle because we can't get right on top of it. There's going to be a lot of questions on that, and I don't know if, unless we hear something from SpaceX, I don't know if we'll be able to ever answer those, other than what comes flying out the back end sometime, and maybe we'll get a figure if there's a bunch of concrete. No, definitely not fondag. But yeah, I don't think we're going to know.
Fondag's almost a dirty word at space.
Right. One last breaking question here from Justin Wayne. Could the quote-unquote AC units be cold traps for diffusion pumps?
That's worth researching. I might have a look at that. Thank you. Still not sure. That seems to be on the vents, on things venting and nitrogen venting. I'm not sure whether I asked this through show and tell. Is there any possibility that some liquid nitrogen could end up in this exhaust manifold? And I'm assured that there isn't a chance of that happening. So that's somehow to process gaseous, very cold gaseous nitrogen. Whether they're harnessing, I've got no idea what they're doing other than that. But it does seem to be exhaust of vaporized nitrogen.
All right. Well, I'm going to go ahead and continue on with a couple of other questions here since we are doing good on time. Crane Man asking, how do they drain the flame trench?
We believe that has something to do with this pipe over here. More than likely a pump in the bottom. Now, it'd have to be a pretty good pump to handle the vibrations. I imagine they could use a suction pump, but it may be too much of a head height to do a suction pump from that depth because you get cavitation issues. So, and I can't see any pump at this end. So perhaps there's a pump at the bottom of the trench, and it appears to be this pipe here coming out and through some filters and then back into the system, and somehow they're recovering the water back into the tanks.
Cool. A question from Leo, where does the pipe on the right side of the ship QD structure go?
Okay, 1 minute. Ah, that pipe. Okay. Maybe that's that water pipe we're wondering about. Actually, that's a good observation. Thank you. I actually hadn't seen that.
Yeah. I don't think I've seen that one either. Thank you very much. Yeah, that's might need a different angle to see where that goes. That's a great question.
Yeah.
Who was that?
good
They should come and join
Yeah.
us show and tell.
Yeah, if that's part of the DSS system, I would expect it to go all the way through and down.
Okay, and set up some kind of ring at the top here, perhaps.
Yeah, plus we've still been kind of wondering if they're going to have some sort of engine chill collect like they do on the OLM. And they used to have on Pad B as well.
So on pad B, the engine chill at the moment was just exhausting, wasn't it?
Yeah. But we haven't seen any.
Go on.
Yeah, we haven't seen any engine chill pipes on the stand yet. So we've been kind of curious about how that's going to happen.
We have a little bit of cabling here, which would be temporary for the actual testing. We noticed that with static fires and cryo testing, they sticky tape or duct tape cables to the ship to mount stress sensors and so on around the various parts of the ships through the testing regime. Thank you, Joe.
All right, I think we're clear. We can. Oh wait, I got a last question from Detroit Mission Control. Is there any chance SpaceX will do a land swap with Fish and Wildlife for the land that they don't own there in the corner?
That's possible.
Good.
I haven't heard anything. Go ahead.
Yeah, it's possible. We know that they're trying to work a deal with Fish and Wildlife, Texas Fish and Wildlife, so it's very possible they may try and include that in that deal as well.
It does seem kind of odd that there's that one little tiny pesky corner, doesn't it?
My question would be is, with everything set up how it is now, what would they need it for? I mean, yeah, of course, there could be always making changes and doing different things. But as of right now, it looks really well organized, really well designed, and it looks like they have everything they need for what they intend to do here. That could change because they might change their intentions here, but would it be worth the fight if they've got everything they need ready to go and set up how it is?
Static fire stand B. No, I'm kidding.
Let's go.
All right, I should say we can, move on to Sanchez.
Okay, I think I said last week as well. I think to notice it's very much clean of all the pipe now that they've finished all the plumbing at Masis, like we just saw, and at the launch site, new horizontal tanks. So they're gearing up now with some more fittings arriving. Oh, they've moved that rack too. I just noticed that. There was a rack here for the longest time. It's been moved. So everything's getting nicely cleaned up, ready for the next operation, which of course is tower sections. Just before we move on to those sections, they're continuing to work on this stand. Some internal infrastructure is being installed. So they're continuing on with that, which they're going to need extra stands sometime in the future soon to once they start increasing. Once the Star Factory gets online, they're going to produce vehicles a lot quicker than they have been. So they're going to need some more stands. I'm still waiting on a ship transport stand that looks like this. I'd love to see a ship transport stand where they don't and have the same system to attach to the SPMTs, so they don't have those rural-looking chains all the time on the ship's stand. So it'd be nice to see a ship transport stand soon, please, SpaceX.
Agree.
We have another of these spiderweb stands with two different radii circles with the hexagon type base down the bottom. So whatever they are, they need more of them in the factory. And this cap, it's been finished, hasn't been moved. Okay, the big news, of course, here at Sanchez is the movement of tower sections. So I can't remember the dates now, but I'll let Darth go on with this one.
Yeah, so I believe it was Tuesday night we had section 7 roll out, and then Friday night I think we had section 3 roll out, which is the one that actually had the nice little Valentine of Stack Me on it. And we were able to see through other ground shots that a lot of the plumbing has already been done in section 3, but we're still waiting for the actual cryo lines for the ship QD, the ship quick disconnect, to actually be installed on those sections. So we also have tower sections 8 and 9 there, which make the top. And we're still waiting for 3 more sections from the port, which I believe are 1, 2, and 6. And we'll show those here a little right there. And it looks like they're getting section 1 ready to come over now. That should be, I believe, tonight. There's a closure to actually move that tonight. So we'll see if that happens.
So a little bit of
Yeah,
details.
they're
Go on, Todd.
Go ahead. They're really close to being ready to move this. They've got it stacked up on the, I can't remember the names of these ones. The trailer-driven SPMTs, I can't remember. But yeah, they are all ready to go. You can see the cribbing that they had to set it on to get it on these so it's high enough to clear. You can see the push rig and tow rig over off to the front and left and the right of these pictures. So yeah, it appears that they're ready to get this one rolling.
Yeah, they're having to jack these sections up onto a bit like, I don't know, looks very rural as well. I've done that before with tractor gearboxes and so on, you split a tractor. So using an SPMT to lift the tower up, put some timbers underneath, and it appears there's extra timbers on the SPMTs. So they'll probably do that in a couple of sections to get it up just a little bit higher to fit this rig underneath and still leave clearance for the legs. So this may have a little bit limited with its height. But as far as I know, these trailers have height adjustable legs, wheels, and steering on every axle. And their main difference is that they're just not hydrostatically driven. So they do have power units, but they're not driven like the SPMTs. In here we can see the power units.
And we've seen the when they get to Sanchez, they actually have to disconnect the cab in order to turn them into the site.
They took them off the trailer and put them back on SPMTs, didn't they, to get them actually into Sanchez?
Yeah, when you get into Sanchez, you got the a set of blocks just lower. There you go in that area, and they set it. We believe they set it onto there, and then they bring in the SPMTs that have more agile turning, and then they get it to their location where they're going to be worked on.
Yeah.
Okay, here I see what it's saying. Yep. The trailers come in here, and then they get taken off the trailers here and put on SPMTs. Oh, there's another one of the H-frames, correct, for transporting. Oh, an SPMTs. Yes. Yep. Very good.
We expect that one to go back to the yard, to the port, with the return of the setup for the next one after the one currently loaded is on. We expect that to go back, and then they'll start prepping it, because the one to the left, I believe it has all those parts put in. So the one over there is all we need.
And this one here doesn't have the H-frame underneath. There's the H-frame there. Just for transport. There seem to be one or two sets of those H-frames short.
Yeah, it was funny because when they loaded them onto the barges at KSC, when they did the force segment move, they actually removed one or two of them to keep at KSC for the final sections.
Okay, in the past flyovers we've noticed, I can just see it here, some conduits going off this building into those bolts over this direction. And this week we have a horizontal boring machine coming into this little area here, so some electrical going on. And once they're finished, these workstations, I'll try and find one, here's one here, will have permanent power set up now, so they don't have to run generators and long extension leads anymore. Each of these stations will have a power station nearby, a power board or switchboard nearby.
Yeah, you can pretty much see one next to each of the tower parking spots.
They're here, and they're all over the place. They're everywhere.
Yeah, I noticed that in the last flyover.
Getting some nice concrete edging along the edge here. I expected to see some of the vertical wall here as well, but they seem to have shored up the edging here anyway. Getting that last few inches of room, they'd like to take up as much concrete room as they can.
Yeah, it looks like they're getting ready to edge it like they had done around the launch site with the angled concrete to sure everything up.
Okay, over to the commodities farm. So they've filled in this hole, but they've still got this hole open, which now we can see just how deep it is. So these commodities seem to have drilled them deeper than everything else. So they probably go underneath drainage and underneath water and continue on to the mega bay and the high bay. I thought we could see it over here, over there, behind the high bay. Now, because they're adding plumbing and commodities to the high bay, it suggests to some that means high bay isn't going anywhere very quick for now. But personally, I think that even though they have run commodities there, that still could be used for a new bay. If they decide to build a new, bigger bay where high bay is, they still will be able to use the commodities that are run there. They just have to cap them and then build over the top of them like we've seen them do before. So for now, high bay is safe, but I don't know that actually adds a lot of permanence to the argument.
Yeah, they could pull their normal tricks and tear it all out again and redo it because they did a new mega bay over there and just everything they did and tear it back down for have it there for a couple weeks and start over again. You never know with SpaceX.
Yeah, I've been really thinking that within 6 months, once they have the office building all finished and the rest of Star Factory finished, that we could see both the Stargate and the high bay both be taken out for a third taller bay, I'll say.
Gigabay. I want to call it the Gigabay. Now, just in case no one's noticed before, we have mentioned it before, they've got this really nice little sculpture here. They're growing grid fins. Look, here's a baby grid fin. So they've planted a grid fin of booster 4 there. I'm sure most of you have seen that before. And speaking of booster 4, they've still got a couple of engines left on it. But we can see the majority have disappeared. And their power heads, I thought had been removed, but there they are. And one bell is still there. So they've been removing the bells from the power heads. So slowly, B4 is disappearing.
Yeah, you can still see a grid fin sitting there amongst those tanks and vaporizers.
A part of that, sorry, I'm going back and forwards a little bit here. Part of that commodities farm was conduits running to here as well, so I'm not sure what's going on there. Maybe that's something future going to be.
Yeah, they got that all filled in finally, so that one appears to be done for now. And then I believe there was one over there that's been filled in as well. So they are finishing up some of that. Just moving on to the next areas now.
Yeah, I'm kind of wondering if they're going to do the rocket garden all the way to Megabay 2 just so that way they can have places to park once they start regular production.
That's a good thought. Okay, let's go on to the garage. Garage is looking fine. It's a really nice looking building. So some speculation for a few weeks with the ramps. I'll just go on here a little bit with the ramps. The ramps are only on this far side because they have to be only on one side. If they had ramps on both sides, you would miss every second level. It took me a minute to work that out in my head. So this side is flat. We can see now there's definitely flat through the levels. And we can see quite clearly a ramp system over on this side, on the far side. So I think I'll cut someone off.
Yeah, the ultimate Lego setup here is going up really quick. I didn't think it was going to be this fast, but they've got this prep. They know what they're doing. The contractor who's built this has more than likely done a bunch of these before, and they just everything you see coming in and empty trucks going out and new parts going in the air. It's really impressive to see how fast it's going.
It's going to fit a whole lot of cars if you think about every level with just the centre for driving. So all those sides are all going to be parking spaces. They're going to fit a whole lot of cars in all here. It's going to be massive, really.
Yeah, pretty much all those cars we normally see along Highway 4 are going to be parking there in the future.
Yeah, and using elevators and stairwells to go up and down. We were joking in show and tell that if you have a Tesla, you could just hail it. So, come to me, Tesla, which I believe is actually a thing for Teslas. Phil Kidd, our resident architect, shared a website for me. I can't bring it up now. Of this company that supply these garages, and their photos. There's some photos that are identical to this building as well. of previous installations. So like Todd just said, this is nothing new for them at all.
Yeah, and with them already having shuttle services between the build site and the launch site, it wouldn't surprise me if they would have like a shuttle from the parking garage to the office building as well.
Yeah, one of those nice automated taxi service type buses could run up and down this side of the road quite easily, you would imagine.
Another overlooked benefit that the employees I know they're going to love, because I've been out there when it's hot. The shade. Parking your car in those levels that are not exposed to sun is going to be a big difference on those hot summer days when you have to come back to your car and get in it and it's 200 degrees inside versus having it in shade. Well, they're really going to enjoy that. I guarantee that.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see if they leave the top open or if they put like a stadium type shade covering over the top.
I think they'll leave it off. That's to punish the people who are late and don't get a good parking spot.
Yeah, I can imagine some shade sails going up. I guess this top level then is going to finish somewhere just here with a vertical wall, somewhere just here as the ramp comes up from the level below up to the top level. Yeah, I could imagine some shade sails with steel posts and the cables you see around the place. Interesting little detail, the cones, we think they're for the tower sections to come on in so people don't park in here, which, see, it works. Not sure about this side though. Oh, hang on. Which side are they coming from? I keep getting this mixed up. I always get mixed up.
Yeah, they're
with
coming
Sanchez.
from that side too. Where your arrow is. They're coming in that way and making the left into there.
So
they need a lot.
Go on.
Yeah, from watching the last two move in, they need a lot of room to get those in to be able to translate them into the correct direction.
I knew as soon as I said that, I had that backwards. I don't know why. Sanchez gets me every time. This is Brownsville, and that's Launch Site Way. Okay, I think we can take some questions now, Joe, please.
Sure, we got a few. Finlay asking, will SpaceX need to get the huge crane that they used to assemble the first tower back for the second tower?
That's a launch site. Oh, go on.
Yeah, no, go ahead. You go.
That's a launch site question, but that's fine. We can answer it here. We got time. I believe there's a different crane coming this time. Where's Crane Man? Crane Man knows all the Crane Man stuff.
Well, I can tell you that the LR 11350 is in Corpus Christi, still assembling a bridge. I guess that went over on its contracted date time, but we did see the all yellow LR 11350 assemble the tower in at the Cape. So we're assuming that Buckner crane will be coming for the second tower.
I've also seen that there might be the model is a CC 8800 and it's a 1600 ton crane that might be showing up instead of one of the 11350s.
That's it. That's the number. I remember now. Thank you very much, Darth.
Interesting. I had not heard that. That's cool. All right. That addresses that. Kanan Copeland, why do you think the last section hasn't been moved from Florida?
The last two sections are the ones that have the SQD connection, and I think they were trying to figure out and reconfigure them for future ships.
Yeah, it's either reconfiguring or it's just that those two levels have a lot more going on them, and they're trying to get as much done as they can there. The equipment was there, the workers were there, so they're getting it done before they move over. Or yeah, reconfiguring it, and which still again takes more workers, more time to reconfigure it. So I think we'll see those soon with the arms and a couple other components that they got built over there, but not yet.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised to see them ship out within the month.
for sure. Todd, you were stumbling over the SPMT or things like that earlier. Crane Man wanted to address that and let you know that they are surely K25 modular trailers.
Yeah, I saw that in the chat. Thank you, Crane Man. We always appreciate your input and your knowledge. Very, very welcome to have put that in. Thank you.
I was just going back to a previous week, the XQD arm sections. Can't really see in this photo. Yeah, very busy section in there where all the cryo stuff. There's heaps of stuff goes on where the QD arm attaches, where all the cryo pipes and basket drains and vents, basket filters and vents and everything happen. There's quite a bit going on those particular levels for the XQD arm. This is going back to the 9th, this photo. Carry on.
All right. Ulrich Mueller asking, what's inside of the white frames in the tower section? Oh, sorry. Chatbot is scrolling on me when new chats come in. What is inside of the white frames in the tower section area where the recent section is placed?
I guess you're talking about these. These are the old wellheads. This used to be a gas or oil well, and they're the old. Remember years ago, there used to be grass area here and some tanks over here. Boy, I could bring up some old photos there and talk for hours on all this. They're the result of this, the wellheads. I hope that's what he was talking about. They were talking about.
I think so. Trey 9 asking, do we know how long it will take them to stack the second tower after the foundation for it is finished?
It
Hopefully
will not
quicker.
take long.
Yeah,
Basically, the first tower took about 4 months. The tower Kennedy at 39A only took about 2 months. So it should not take long at all for the third tower to actually be stacked.
Yeah, the fact that they're starting them again, and then but they're doing so much more outfitting on these that they did in any of the other towers. They're going to have more pipe work on them. I mean, there's pipe work everywhere when you look close around this area. They're going to be even closer to being a usable tower in less time because they're going to go up so much more complete than the other ones have. So I mean, overall, everything about this tower is going to be a lot faster.
especially since they're adding. I don't know what Todd said that they're adding all the pipes and everything here at Sanchez. It'll definitely go ahead a lot quicker. I mean, there's the stacking, then there's the fitting out. The stacking itself is only a small part of the tower construction. The fitting off, as with any construction, fitting off is actually the more complicated and more time is taken. We noticed that with this building here, the building went up fairly quick, and it took quite a long time for it to actually finished and completely fitted out.
Yeah, and pretty much we saw that third section, everything except for the actual cryo lines has pretty much already been kitted out as far as plumbing goes and conduit, but it'll still take several months for that to get finished.
Another one of the things that is going to make it a lot easier is we've seen in some other ground pictures that they've even got argon piped in for the different levels. So when they're doing their welding and stuff, they don't have to bring tanks up. They don't have to run lines. Everything is going to be on each level to make it that much easier to do the finished welding, to do adding whatever pipes they need to add that once it's stacked to get everything tightened up and ready to go. It's going to be quicker on that just because the commodity's up there for them. That's a big difference.
All right. Here's a big one from Tom 8. Do you know if SpaceX want to buy the grass slot near the new parking garage? And if so, what is the status? And do they own the houses with the red roof, and what are they used for?
I'm not sure about the.
Go on.
Yeah, I was going to say I'm not sure about the Tiki Bar as it's been known, but the that plot of land in front, apparently the owner does not want to sell to SpaceX at any cost.
Yeah, and that's not one they're going to be able to win in court, or they're going to even be able to have much for fight in court due to the fact that it has road access. It's got utilities access. That's not landlocked. So if they don't want to sell, I'm pretty sure that they're not going to get that. It might be a major case for them to try to get it, and I don't think SpaceX is going to bother with it. They're just going to let that person sit on it and do nothing.
As far as I know, Tiki Bar is owned by SpaceX and it's used for staff lunches. I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure that's correct. It used to be, I think it used to be Frank's house back before 2018. It used to be called whoever Frank is.
All right. Kyler Monars asking, have you guys noticed any activity with the HLS nose cone?
No.
As far as I know, it's pretty much, I think they're just letting it sit there with the environmentals running just for long endurance testing.
I mean, it's been fenced in a little bit, but other than that, no.
Yeah, I believe every once in a while we see one or two people going in and out of it. I did see someone go out of it in October when I was there. But other than that, I would agree with Darth on the long-term environmental testing.
Oh, just while we're on this photo quickly, sorry. I've just noticed on Ship 32, this is that pipe that failed on Ship 31. It's a high pressure, perhaps helium line, which could be up to hundreds of bar, over 1,000 psi, and it doesn't appear because the raceway is not there. But that's one part of the pipe, and then up here again, this is where it terminates. So Ship 31 had that pipe failed as well as the electrics. Which one caused which? They're still guessing that the pipe caused the electrical fault rather than the electrical fault causing the pipe to fail. Thank you, Joe.
You know, with the pressures that pipe is under, especially if it's helium, it's so high that even a nick on the outside can cause a failure in it down the line as too much pressure. So that's one of the things we had talked about in show and tell, and I'm thinking that that's probably more than likely what happened. Of course, we don't know until we hear something from SpaceX, but those are under high pressure, and just a littlest nick on them can cause them to fail down the line from fatigue.
All right. Question for the parking garage from Kyler. Have we seen any provisions for Tesla superchargers?
I have not seen any myself, but it would not surprise me if those do get installed, even if it's just on the ground level.
We haven't seen any infrastructure installed yet. There could possibly be fire, sprinklers, and light. There'll be lighting, I guess. We haven't seen any infrastructure yet. We've seen cables in conduits, but yeah, nothing as far as infrastructure yet. There was cabling, perhaps enough to be able to handle some supercharging, and of course now there's three-phase power here. There's definitely power here for Tesla charging. A nice big solar farm somewhere would be good to charge the Teslas up, which is ideal. Ideally, Teslas get charged, all electric vehicles get charged with solar, but obviously that's not quite enough.
Yeah, I don't think we'll see anything. I believe the conduits, the pipes, the wires are already in the ground there, and the rest of that will be done by the electricians once everything's up. I'm sure I would be absolutely blown away, shocked if they did not plan for that. We won't see it from this angle unless someone gets inside that parking structure. I don't think we'll see it, but I'm sure they have it.
All right, Crane Man wanted to point out that the CC8800 is not sure, probably the LR11350 again.
Thanks, Crane Man.
And on Copeland, well, that's for the launch site. We'll skip that one for now. And then finally, Leo wanted to touch on that pipe on the static fire ship stand. He says, I kind of figured out where that mystery pipe I spotted goes. You can see a flange under the leg. It goes down, and that means it goes back under the ship QD stand.
Quickly jump back there. down here goes underneath, you think. Like they're saying there's a flange down here somewhere. But thanks, we appreciate everybody's observations. We did some different bits and pieces. Thank you very much.
That pretty well wraps up the questions for here. We can move on.
Okay, let's go to the build site. We're doing well, filling the time today. Okay, a build site. So, ta-da, there's one pretty well finished Star Factory. There could be something going on in this area still yet over this corner, but otherwise she's pretty well final form. So we've got the roofing down here where it abuts Mega Bay 2, and there's room here for raptors or possibly not barrel sections because there's a pillar in the middle of the door, I think. So at least could be a raptor nest in here, which would be an ideal spot for it, with a turntable either side here, and the 3 engine stands here, and over there.
Yeah, that section there shocked me when we did finally see it go up. I was not expecting that. I thought the foundations that we had seen were something else going on, and then all of a sudden this is up. So, because you're right, as far as we know, unless they redesign the bottom of the Mega Bay, you can't get anything big in there. But they can definitely pass stuff in between for sure. Now, whether or not they can re-engineer it, double it up, triple it up, and then have open it back up so there's more room. I don't know. That's not my game. But the whole thing was just, I was not expecting that. I know people thought it, people did guess it. I was not one of those.
Yeah, it would not surprise me if that is the area that they've designated just for the Raptors, because I know just from everything we've seen, it definitely looks like they're trying to make clean room type environments for when they do start producing the next block of ships and boosters.
Yeah, they're finally looking more like clean rooms instead of just building. It's always amazed me how SpaceX here at Boca Chica are building rockets literally out in a paddock, an open paddock. It's been amazing to watch it turn full circle and come back to clean rooms again now. And it's taken quite substantial infrastructure to do that. So there's a little detail I hadn't noticed before. You can see the fall of the roof here. That's the old fascia of the original Star Factory Block 1. And this is how much the roof is sloping down this way. So all that roof, it's a lot of water, all that roof, there's a photo, all that roof comes down this end of the factory and goes into these drains, which now have been hooked up. For quite a long time, these weren't hooked up. There was a gap in the pipes here. So now they're all hooked up and heading out. You see it in this photo? Jumping around a bit again. End up going out through this main drain here, which will end up coming out into the flats. Okay, just while we're over on this photo, there's some more aft flaps here. So there's 4, was it 4 or 5? 1, 2, 3, and one on the ground. Oh, 5, there is 1, 2, 3, 4, and one on the ground down there, with one of them being tiled here.
Yeah, we were not expecting the aft flaps to change much, maybe in their thickness, but overall shape and design on the next block of ships. It looks like they're going to stay pretty much the same. It's the forward flaps that are definitely getting redesigned.
And speaking of forward flaps, there was one sitting here. I think it was just here, but it's gone now. So it's gone into the factory. It was either just there or just there, but it's disappeared. I think it was over here. So it's gone into the factory, perhaps to get installed on a nose cone section somewhere.
Yeah, they didn't leave that one outside long at all. It was there and then gone. We'll have to see when it comes out the total changes in it. When we can see it, who knows when? With the size of this factory, it might be a while.
A source of some annoyance is they're painting this roof still. So this tent is obviously staying a bit longer. There was speculation that perhaps they would move the bakery inside somewhere, which still could happen. It would require obviously a special room to be sectioned off with all the air conditioning and air management systems put in place. But for now, it appears the bakery is staying put.
Yeah, it would not surprise me if that area to the left they do put a more permanent structure, but for now it definitely looks like they're planning on keeping that little area.
So this is some of the commodities. When we're noticing the commodities farm getting plumbed to the Rocket Garden and then to Mega Bay 1 and High Bay. At the same time also it came over here. So perhaps the commodities farm will replace this argon farm. I'm not sure about that. But anyway, those commodities come to here as well. Not sure what's going on there. The new fire building's almost complete. So there's a new set of wells here. And I expect to see a couple of those round white tanks, well, I thought here and here, but now they've got this infrastructure here. That's strange. Anyway, we'll keep an eye on
Yeah, I don't
that.
think we saw that.
Oh,
Yeah,
and
that's
go on.
yeah, that's definitely new there on the side. So it looks definitely like they're planning on some more upgrades. And it makes sense that they would have multiple pump stations for how large this whole area is.
Starbase in general, considering if you take into account the bays and the whole factory, for sure, it's a massive thing to get fire control working properly.
Yeah, and I'm pretty sure we saw all the what we believe were the water pipes running the whole backside of the Star Factory from Sanchez.
That's correct. Those horizontal borers coming in through here. I think they may have done this run completely through, or they might have stopped halfway. Oh, they stopped here and continued on, I think. And even all the way back to there was some of it came up over in this area as well. In this area just here, some of the horizontal boring came out as well. So there is water as well plumbed in to that system through to here. And the water continued on after that, continued on with more horizontal boring over in this direction to here for the village, I guess, to continue with water to the village. And now I believe they've got mains water from Brownsville as well coming into the site and probably goes over to that water area and then continues to be distributed around the sites. While we're here, we can start on the office building. So work's continuing. Oh, go on.
Go ahead.
Work continuing as we expect again. This section's coming along nicely. Now, I'm just looking at this now. I would expect to see these gigantic cross beams, these X beams. They were over the top. Here's one in here. They were over the top of the dog bones, which are in here as well, but I can't see the great big cross pieces in this one. So this bit of office is going to be slightly different to that set of office. It's also significantly narrower.
Yeah, I was just thinking, I'm wondering if that's another pump station, possibly, just from the layout, or some other support building.
It may not even go full height, I think you're suggesting there. So far, it appears to be at least 2 stories and a roof, perhaps 3 stories. 3. I've got to count different, because in Australia we have a ground floor, then a first floor and second floor. Whereas you guys, first floor, second floor, third floor, etc. Americans, I mean. We do a couple little things different between America and other countries, but that's fine. It takes all types to make up this weird and wonderful world. So some ground photos, we saw a massive pile of dirt here, which appeared way too much for suggestion that it was just from digging out these footings. But with these lower altitude photos, we get a good idea of the actual height and depths of things. And those footings are significantly deep. And yeah, that's the dirt from them right here.
Yeah, this is another mystery one that popped up out of nowhere. Oh, I mean, of course, we saw some of it coming, but it's similar to the dog bone styles they had, but it looks like the building is terminated with the overhang onto your left there, the original building. So what is going on with this one? I'm still not sure. I know there's lots of speculation, but again, I this new section right here is kind of got me scratching my head.
It almost looks like an afterthought. See, they've dug it down here and they've sort of undermined some of the footings here. It's kind of strange. And there's more footings here. So these footings suggest an exterior wall. We've seen that type of footing before on along here and along this wall and along that wall, etc. So this could be, we're still not unsure. It could be part of the factory and it could be part of the office, but we're tending to think it's going to be part of the factory.
Yeah, it
Yeah,
does look like it's right up against it.
Yeah, especially with them leaving that end of the highway side of the factory open still and not paneling it.
Correct. Okay, that's the ring yard is, we're calling this ring yard / scrapyard because things tend to get scrapped right here. We also see some test articles come out. We believe that's a test article to be scrapped. And I think with that we can move on to the village, which is much the same. This walkway seems to be complete now with guardrail and all. And I thought I saw some people even using it already somewhere along the line. Anywho, so we're looking for a sushi restaurant. The sushi restaurant address is on this street. I can't remember the name of the street. And it could be in here, or it could be just in here. It seems kind of odd that there's a sushi restaurant just sort of here. I believe it's private to just SpaceX. There was a joke that perhaps a very valuable employee might have one of these houses and requested a sushi restaurant, but that's just being silly. And there's some kind of building over here, rec building, to be constructed in the future. Okay, with that, we can go on with some questions for Build Site, please, Joe.
Sure. I want to start by thanking Jim Cabot for gifting a membership. Much appreciated. All of that support goes right back into these flights. Appreciate you. Question from Kyler Monaris. Is the Argon farm used to store welding gases for the automated welding machines?
It very well could be. Yeah.
That's what I believe. In both the factory and the mega bays, yes. There could be also high pressure nitrogen. I think someone was saying in one of the chats they can use high pressure nitrogen rather than air because it's cleaner and drier in pneumatics. But yes, as far as we can tell, it's just, there's an argon farm over here. As far as we can tell, yeah, it's an argon commodities farm.
Yeah, it would not surprise me if they have high pressure airlines, especially for power tools versus using electric.
Cool. Well, thanks, Dave Avery, for gifting 5 memberships. That is much appreciated. Good sir. Appreciate you. Todd and Cabo, question regarding that tent with the paint. Wouldn't that paint on the tent technically be roof waterproofing?
It could be. It depends on the paint. Yeah, I don't. Makes no sense to me still. But yeah, maybe they need to waterproof it. But if they're going to waterproof it because it's leaking, I would think they would just replace the roof and start over. But instead, they decided to paint it.
It's a
Some
crime in my opinion. It's a crime.
kind of impermeable paint. There's another word in there I couldn't pronounce. Impermeabilizante or something. I'm not exactly sure. But at any rate, Brian Illenberg, what is the ring next to the E-dome? Scrap, perhaps?
I did notice that. It's a weird looking ring, isn't it? Not sure. It almost looks like it's something sitting on a ring. So here's a ring, and then, yeah, that's something
Is
sitting
it stiffeners that are ratchet strapped to the ring to keep maybe to store them or possibly for scrap?
That's
Yeah,
what
it
it is.
definitely looks like the stiffener.
Yeah, they put them on top of the tank. When they transport barrel sections, they sit them on top. Are they? They're not the lead-ins, though, are they? They're just the stiffeners.
Yeah, those are just the stiffeners when the barrels are sitting
Good
on
question.
the
Thank
ring.
you.
All right. And a nice transition question from Totalius Watts. Sorry if I screwed that up. Any Rio West views this week?
And Rio West, we were talking about there.
I believe it's from the
shopping center
opposite
restaurant.
direction.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yep.
No, we don't have any. So today we're a bit limited on these. This week we're a little bit limited with the flyover with the weather, and it's at 4,000 feet. This flyover. RGV was very lucky to get both the plane and the weather lined up this week. So we're a little bit limited with the video, with the images, but nonetheless, they're awesome videos, awesome images, and they give us enough detail to see what's going on with Starbase. It's really well done by the RGB photography team.
On top of weather and flight levels that they're at, it also depends on the pilot. Some of them are more comfortable with going over this side than that side. So that there's differences in the pilots. We always go with what they are comfortable with and what they are welcome to do. So different pilots, different planes, different flight levels, different flight routes.
Excellent to point out. Yep. That's all the questions I got. I think we can go ahead and move on.
Okay, on to the launch site. So just a little note here with what Todd just said about TFRs and pilots being comfortable. So TFR on the launch site has been increased in radius. So, and being a lower altitude, this is as close as they could get to the actual launch site comfortably. So we have a couple of long-range photos of the launch site and then some ground photos to continue on with. So this is the flight path that the camera crew took on this flight, and took some photos of the launch site and the build site and Masis and amongst all that. And this week's Masis photos are some of the best we've had for quite a while. So with that, we'll go on to the gateway to Mars, the launch site. The big news, I guess, is this Pad B. So because it's such a long-range photo, that's why it's a little bit grainy, but I'll reiterate, it gives us enough information to continue a conversation on the changes here at Suborbital Tank Farm. A big thing to note, obviously, is the 3 Amigos are missing.
Yeah, I just want to add on real quickly that the TFR also coincides with the MSIB that was issued for the wet dress rehearsal coming up. So if you look at the MSIB, it actually matches that same area as the TFR.
Thank you, Darth. So Pad B is formerly known as Pad B, is completely gone now. The berm, the comms hut over here, all the plumbing from here on. I might just switch over to that previous flyover just to get a before photo. Oh, hang on. Sorry. There we go. So, just to give you an idea here of what's actually missing, the three Amigos are missing all this plumbing, this comms hut, and these bits of infrastructure through here. And that whole berm so far has disappeared, as has obviously the pad here has completely disappeared. And I'm personally guessing that all the concrete we see here is going to get torn up.
Yeah, it's also worth mentioning those two white tanks on the right, the two horizontal tanks, have also been removed.
Oh, of course, thank you. Yep. With the smaller one being removed on SPMTs, maybe going to that storage lot, and the bigger one was sitting over here for a bit, and now it's yesterday, I think, was removed from site.
Yeah, yesterday evening.
And the wall has been cut back here, so they've taken more of the wall down. So we have the piles being installed in this area, which I think we're looking at being the tower location, leaving perhaps this area or this area for the OLM at this stage. And it's still a guess, although it's somewhat of an educated guess.
Yeah, with the density of those piles that I've seen from other photos, it definitely is ending up being a square outline. So that is definitely pointing towards the tower base.
I'm interested to see if, as we go along, if they tie the tower and the OLM base to more of one structure than two separate structures. And well, I think the amount of piles we're going to see obviously is going to be tenfold over what we saw before, and the preparation and the giant block underneath of the OLM for support. It's going to be interesting to watch. I'm still watching this with great excitement.
The connector tie. The tie between the OLM and the tower Todd was talking about stems from some speculation that perhaps the OLM A is moving slightly in comparison to the tower, and that's maybe why they had to change the stabilizer points on the chopsticks, perhaps. But that's pure speculation, of course. That's
yeah,
nice
and with this
gravel.
last stack, oh, go ahead, Steph.
No, you're right.
I was gonna say with this last stack, it was definitely a much quicker stack. I want to say one of the faster stacks they've done, at least definitely in the recent history of stacks. So whether that helped out with the changing of the stabilizing points or other changes they've made in between, it was definitely an improvement. So that was nice to see.
Yeah, it was nice to see.
Go on.
It was nice to see that they only had to stack it one time. Once it was set down, that was it. They didn't have to try and realign everything.
I'll get back onto that subject in a second as well. Got a bit more to add to that. We've got some nice gravel here. So that's... Oh, there's that tank I was talking about. It was parked there for a while in here. Thanks, I actually had forgotten to mention those two tanks. We saw... I'm not sure we saw it last flyer or not. We saw an extra bit of hoppy added there. So that's about it for the suborbital tank farm area. As far as we can see is changes. The only one speculation is whether this comms hut will stay or not. Personally, I think it will get moved, but there's a lot of... during launches or during wet dress rehearsals when there's been hold-ups, crew have been noticed to be coming here rather than the orbital tank farm side. So perhaps that means there's some connection still between this building and orbital pad A. So given that as added speculation, this building may not move, but I don't think that will stop them moving this building somewhere over into here. We did notice over the weeks when they were installing all the new electrical that this area in here, is a better shot, had new electrical and massive amounts of pipes, which are just which are just sitting underground here, ready to be tapped into for the new orbital system somewhere at some time. And because they weren't included into that building, it's kind of led me to think that that building is actually going to be moved. But I've been wrong before, and I could probably be wrong again. So because I've said it's going to get moved, it'll probably stay there. The rest
Sounds
of the
about
site,
right.
yeah, I know. The rest of the site, most of the big changes have obviously been GSE tank number 1 and cryo shell number, fill in this blank spot,
5.
5.
I think it's 5.
Yeah, that's what I heard.
So the actual tank is out now as well, and completely, is that correct? Is out now and completely cut down?
I'm not sure on that one, Steph. Sorry, but it's a good possibility with the rate they move.
Oh, no, sorry. No, that's not correct. Sorry. I've got some ground photo here. This is the previous tank, I believe, because in these ground photos taken the same day, that GC tank the actual tank is still standing. So I have some ground photos taken before the flyover. I'm just trying to find that GC tank. 1 second. Oh, there it is. So I have some good ground photos of the actual destruction of the pad. So I remember this tank being installed with the old yellow 11,000 we called Bucky. And at first I thought there was some deformation, but it's just some of the perlite still sitting on the actual tank, as we've seen with the previous tank. A little bit gets stuck here and there. Otherwise, the tanks look in really good condition, as opposed to the shells. You can see quite clearly how the shell, where they could paint the outside but not the inside here. And even some dinting on the inside becoming apparent here and there, which is interesting. A bit of echoing or a bit of something, dinting the shells here and there.
Yeah, I'm sure definitely during IFT1 things got ricocheted between those shells.
Yeah, that was a big eye opener, that launch number 1. So there's the last of the Amigos. So they lifted the first Amigos and they dropped it. I don't know if I should mention that, but I'm sure they'll have an OH&S form to fill out about that one, which appeared that a lifting point failed on the tank rather than anything on the lifting rig. And then so from the next ones on, they just laid them down, and I guess they've just scrapped them.
Yeah, that was a really scary video to watch. Hoping that nobody was under there, of course. I'm surprised they didn't spend more time inspecting the lifting points. I know on the other shells, they were up there, looked like the X-ray, probably particle magnet testing to check them out. But I don't know if they did it on these ones, but it definitely didn't work out in the long run for them.
I think the Amigos might not be steel, though. Is that correct?
I think they are. They were just painted black.
Okay, they do look steel. Oh, I'm not sure still. Yeah, okay, thanks.
It's kind of like, it reminds me of the tank that was replaced over next to the hydraulics bunker, the fluids bunker, and the comms bunker near the launch mount.
So we noticed that they've had crew up in LOX tank of the booster since the last partial fill, cryo test, GC test, however you want to explain the last time they did some testing out here. And they also had, which photo has it? They also had crews up inside the engine bay, up in the false floor, with some more air conditioning going in underneath as well. So just to round out today's photos, we'll just quickly go through some of these ground photos. An interesting little detail we picked up on our last set of ground photos, I think this is the best photo for it. We picked up this new little sensor, and although it took about the same time to stack this ship, it seemed significantly quicker to actually line the ship up at the last minute when actually drop it that last sort of 12 inches or 300 mil. And we think this sensor has something to do to significantly improve the stacking.
Yeah, especially with that fourth guide pin being added in that same location.
So ship 29 still has some tiling to happen, and it's this sort of pipe here. I guess, this pipe is an indicator, but you would imagine they would need the ship and booster aligned like perfectly, to within this sort of tolerance for, balance of flight and aerodynamics and structural strength and everything. They would need the loads precisely where the loads need to be, I would imagine, considering how dang huge this thing is. So a good question is, how long will this SpaceX sign last as well? The old
Gone
tank,
in a month.
yeah, the first nitrogen tank is pretty well gone. The plumbing in here looks very much complete. That's a really nice view of the crane there. I can see the fill lines for the LOX, the horizontal tanks. As far as I know now, all of the vertical tanks are fully decommissioned, and they're not filling them at all. They're not doing anything with the vertical tanks anymore. And the LOX tanks are now completely decommissioned, and everything is running purely on the horizontal tanks, which is amazing. So the next launch and wet rest rehearsal should be purely horizontal tanks.
Yeah, there was a lot of speculation that the next launch would be half and half. I was definitely on the half and half team, but been proven wrong. But once again, that is definitely looking like they're ready for the horizontal tanks. I'm curious to see what goes in where the vertical tanks were next. What are they going to do with that area? It's always changing. To be continued.
I'll find something to put there, I'm sure. Okay, we might round
no
off.
doubt about that.
We might round off the last 10 minutes with some questions, please, Joe. And I'm going to personally thank all the donations and gifting and memberships and so on. I feel very supported with doing these shows, and I'm really happy to fill in when Zach's not around. And I'm getting good feedback. I really appreciate the feedback. I know it's taken a few weeks to get into the rhythm of things, but I think we're doing okay as a B team. We were called the A team earlier. That was nice to hear. So yeah, I really appreciate everyone's support for the channel and helping with the finances of actually doing the flyovers and so on. It takes a bit of expense to hire these airplanes and all. So much appreciation and love to everyone. Thank you very, very much.
Much agreed. And thanks to James L for $5 super chat. So when do you think they will launch Booster 11 and Ship 29?
We have some insight there. They're planning to launch twice in June, and the 1st of June is looking like the first flight.
Yeah, those are the best guesses I can go with what we're hearing.
And you heard it first here on RGV Live.
Sounds like good news to me.
Well, probably not, but anyway, thank you.
Yeah, I think it all depends on how fast they get the WDR finished.
So I wasn't disagreeing with you, Joe. I was sort of disagreeing with myself there. It's all good.
Oh, no, you're good. All right. I want to thank So Scared for just becoming a RGV Early Access member. Much appreciated. Appreciate that support. A question from Kenan Copeland. Once we're at the launch site, yep, that was an earlier question. Any hardware spotted for the new OLM, and do we know any changes to the new OLM table? Perhaps water on the top of the table?
No infrastructure at all for the table yet.
Yeah, as far as I know, we have not seen much yet at all.
Yeah, I have not seen anything, and there's still a lot of speculation about what is going to be happening with that new table. So at this point, it's all just speculation until we actually see the foundations go in and some sort of either legs or trench system being built. We really do not know. The only thing we do know is the tower, the new short chopsticks, and those are the only verified components.
I do expect that we'll see some major changes. They're going to have streamlined it. They're going to have know what they did wrong, what they did right, what was working, what wasn't. I'm pretty sure they're going to be streamlined compared to the other one, the current one.
Yeah, just a whole lot of groundwork here so far. And related to that, Kyler Monar's question, theoretically, shouldn't the OLM piles be stronger because a full stack that's fully loaded with propellants be heavier than the tower?
I would say so.
Go on.
Yeah, I would say so. And I believe starting with the tower foundations lets them set up exactly where the OLM is going to be placed once the tower base is done.
That's an interesting question. The full stack takeoff weight we know is around 5,000 tons. Now I'm not sure. Plus the OLM, plus the legs. I guess you could almost include the concrete underneath as well. That'd be interesting to know which is heavier. To be honest, the tower or the actual full stack plus the OLM. I'm leaning towards the tower would be a bit heavier, but I don't know.
Right.
So,
Kenan Copeland asking, once the OLIT-2 is done, will OLIT-1 and 2 be the closest orbital class launch pads to each other?
Possibly, except for I guess 39A has two once that tower's commissioned, which I think still not quite as close as these two. That's a good question.
Yeah. Thanks, Yazada, for the $10 super chat. It says, keep RGV up in the air and these great shows coming. Appreciate you, Yazada. Always appreciate your support. Thank you. Booster 10 asking, do you think we will see version 2 ships fly on version 1 boosters? Personally, I don't think we see any version 2 boosters fly before orbital pad B is finished, as I don't think they will be compatible with version 1 OLM.
Well, I can say that right now we have up to booster 14 that is stacked, which would coincide with ship 32 if they decide to use that. So it's just a waiting game to see if there is a version 2 booster that's going to come out, or if they stick with booster block 1, if you want to call it that, with block 2 ships.
All right. Donald Monroe, what will take the place of the soon-to-be scrapped vertical tanks?
Yeah, I'd like to know that too. I don't have an answer on that one yet. Possibly Zach has an idea, but for me, I'm not sure.
Yeah, I'm still leaning towards some more horizontals going there because if they are ramping up cadence, they're going to need more quantity of propellants.
For sure. Matt MMX, do you think the toilet bunker building's window side will stand up to Orbital Launch Tower 2?
I think it's going to need a wall of some description. The short answer there is no. I mean, it's protected from that launch pad from the tower and its own brick wall. There could be another wall put in here, or they could put a berm over here. There's probably going to be another berm. I'm seeing a few different ideas about spherical tanks, and I'm thinking horizontal tanks, but people are saying that'd be silly. I sort of my personal idea is they're going to mirror image all that here, but they could use a different tanking system to the horizontals because they're not all that efficient in space in actual room to be moved. So there's still going to be some kind of berm through here. So there could be some kind of berm down here. But I think it needs protection for sure. Seems quite vulnerable, that face of the building.
For sure. Thanks, Detroit Mission Control, for a $10 super chat. Great job as always, Team RGV. Thanks for the show and keep flying. Appreciate your support, Detroit Mission Control. Much appreciated. Final question in my queue. Kanan Copeland, how do we know there are going to be 2 in June?
There was. I'm getting that from a media release, as far as I know. I'm trying to think of my sources. Sorry, I probably should have my sources ready when I say things like that. That Kathy, I'm pretty sure Kathy mentioned something like that.
Yeah, I'm not sure who, but it does. I believe it was a publicly mentioned thing, or somebody local had been talking to somebody. So I can't remember who though.
Right. All right. Crane Man just coming in with a question. Since the launch site is experimental, that could be the same for the orbital tank farm.
True.
Absolutely, very true.
Yeah, all of this was research and development to start with. So we'll see. I think 39A will be the actual quote unquote production or operational pad, while this still goes through testing.
Agreed. Booster 10, which booster do you think will be the first to attempt reflight? I don't think any of us know that.
We'll be keeping our eyes open for it.
Well, if we have to make a guess, I'm going to go with 14 since that's the furthest one out that's stacked. But that's definitely not placing any money on that one at all.
Yeah, agreed. And I think 13 will be the actual first landing attempt. I have a feeling we may see Booster 12 end up doing another virtual landing, not an actual tower landing.
I heard those air quotes, virtual landing.
Yeah, I think we're gonna once we get a good virtual landing, air quotes. I think we'll have the next one will get close, but they will ditch it, in their last ditch spot out in the Gulf, and then that would be 14, I believe. That would be 13. 13. That would be close to being caught. But I think we're going to see a out in the middle of nowhere virtual catch, then what they are going to call an attempt, but a last ditch into the Gulf, and then they'll go for it.
For sure. Sounds good. Well, my queue is clear. I think we can begin wrapping up the show here.
All right. Well, I'd like to thank Todd for joining us today. Thank you, Todd.
Yeah, thank you very much for having me, Steph. Thank you, RGV, for having me. Everyone, I appreciate all the help and love that you give RGV. All these little bit of things go towards our next flight, including likes and comments. So everything helps. So we really, really appreciate it. Thank you so much for having me.
And Darth, thank you very much for your time today, and we'll see you through the week. Thank you.
Thank you, Team RGV, for having me as always. And yeah, these are definitely exciting times ahead in the next couple of months. Everybody keep your eyes open and have a great rest of your day.
And for me personally, once again, I reiterate, I really appreciate everyone's support for the channel and for myself personally. I know there's quite a few people in the chat I've been seeing that I see quite often in other chats around the place. And likewise, we get very good support there as well. So thank you all for joining us today and your support, and we'll see you next week. Bye.
Yeah, I agree with all that sentiment. Thank you all. Thanks for an awesome chat. All the awesome gifters and donators. We appreciate you. With PayPal or YouTube Super Chat, always appreciated. Thanks, RGV, for getting these awesome photos. Thanks, Emlyn, for running the stream, turning the knobs, and pushing the buttons. Thanks, my lovely wife, Astro Jen, for scrambling to get the commentators up and scheduled today. And with that, thanks to Todd and Darth and Stephanie for your time and your expertise and sharing all your thoughts with us. Much appreciated, y'all. And with that, most engines cut off. Hot staging confirmed. Love you. Bye.